my head in the stars.
Tiff, what do you think really gets you going?
For me, 1,000% autonomy is important to me, very important to me because um, I am a creative person and I like to do things in the way that makes sense for me. So you
Mhm.
can tell me what you want, like the final product to look like. I'm more than happy to take direction. So autonomy is not just about like I want to do what I want to do the way I want to do it, although that is very exciting for me. But it's more about let me use my creativity, let me have some control and choice over my process. If you're dictating every moment of every day to me, I feel stifled. Um, I get very disconnected.
Mhm.
So to give you like an example of that would be like time management. I am a doer. I don't necessarily like sit down in the morning and say, oh, here's how I want to plan my day.
Mhm.
I usually sit down like what needs to get done today, and then I can prioritize like quickly, like how to get it done. So I remember working for a boss years ago who wanted our Outlook calendars to be color coded for every minute of every day of what our plan was for the day. So we had to go in and put like, here's where we're doing meetings. This is desk time. This is phone calls. This is break. This is lunch. This is, I don't know, where we cried to a pillow. Like every minute was, she wanted every minute of every day color blocked on our calendar. And um, working in human services, you know that you can have the best plan, but we work in crisis and trauma. It's always going to deviate from the plan. And so I really struggled to be motivated to do that calendar, knowing that I'm going to spend X amount of time color coding this calendar that I'm never going to look at.
Mhm.
I'm never going to look at it. Not one time am I going to look and say, oh, it's time for desk time. Let me switch gears and start work. I am doing what needs to get done and reprioritizing throughout the day. And I was very efficient, by the way, very, very efficient at that work. Even as not a planner, as a doer, I knew I had to get done by what date, and I could really easily kind of flex through all of that. My work was never late. And even to the point where people would be like, must be nice. Must be nice to not be all stressed out the first of the month. And I'd be like, it is nice. Thanks for noticing. Right. Because my stuff always got done. They always say, if you want to know the best way to do something, ask the lazy person.
Yeah.
I'm the lazy person. I don't want to work any harder than I have to. I want good results. I want great outcomes. I'm competitive like you. So I want my work to be better than your work. I'm very, very motivated to be like prestige, I guess, to be like the best of the best. That's something that I'm really excited about. Um, but autonomy, as soon as you say, Tiff, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and I wanted to do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, I'm like, sounds like you know exactly what you want. You should probably do it yourself. I'm not really interested.
Yeah.
So having that freedom and autonomy, I think is very motivating for me. It keeps me moving, keeps me going when I have to think for myself and um, again be able to process. But if it's just routine, do it exactly this way, and that's the way it's always done. You can miss me with that. I'm not interested. I'm also highly accountable. I'm highly motivated by accountability to others. And I say to others because you and I have talked about this. I'm not accountable to myself, but if somebody else is counting on me for something, I'm very motivated by making sure I don't drop the ball for somebody else where they're going to have to pick up my slack. And so I'm very, very motivated by collaboration and being accountable to somebody or accountable to a project or accountable to a timeline. Very motivated by that. And if I'm doing something that nobody cares about, like if I stop doing it, nobody would care, I'm probably not going to do it anymore. So if it doesn't have like value or it doesn't impact anybody, I'm not going to be motivated to do it for sure. Those are like, I think the two that stand out to me the most. And it's interesting because that's ultimately the way I lead as well. And I think that's what's interesting about motivation and why this is such an important topic is that um, no two people are motivated in the same exact way. And I think a lot of times we try to motivate people in the way in which we're motivated, and then it falls flat, and then we're disappointed. And then, people come up with things like, nobody wants to work anymore because you're using like your style for somebody else, which doesn't always translate. I can't motivate somebody to be autonomous if they need really clear direction. We have a colleague of ours, I won't say her name here because I don't know if she wants to be called out, but she is very, very meticulous and very like lengthy and like very plan oriented. So when she produces work, it is very, very thorough. She needs to have the step by step by step for everything. And she's really good at that. And that's what she's motivated by is again, structure and again, details. And for someone like myself who loves autonomy, ah, it's completely demotivating for me. And so working with her, we've had to find balance. And I've had to learn again, because I'm thinking like, oh, just do what feels right. And she's like, absolutely not what feels right. Like, what exactly do you want from me? Or what do you want to look like? Or I say, oh, do this. And then she brings it back and I'm like, yeah, that'll work. What do you mean that'll work? Like, was it great? Was it enough? Was it too much? Like, she wants all of this detail again about the feedback. And I'm just like, that works. And that's again demotivating for her. I think I'm like giving you great feedback, like, oh, it's good. I like it. And she's like, no, I put a lot of effort. I need you to like tell me specifically what about this is amazing and wonderful. Um, and again, we motivate people, I think, in the way that we think everybody's motivated because that's how we're motivated. It's our default. But it's like you have to get beyond that. What do people need? And again, not everybody needs the same thing. So you have to be very flexible here. Be flexible and be observant. Pay attention to what people need. And more importantly, listen. Listen to people. Watch their reactions. Watch them. Because they'll tell you right away. If you're like, woohoo, you did a great job. And they're like, what? They don't, that's not exciting for them, right? It's not exciting for them. So find a different way. And when in doubt, ask, what's exciting for you? What makes you tick? You know what makes me tick? When you leave me the hell alone, let me do my job. Gotcha. I can do that for you. What makes you tick? I need you to tell me every day that I'm amazing and wonderful. Okay, I can meet you there if that's what you need. Like you have to find that balance and no one approach is the right way.
So if I have to hold your hand and babysit you, I guess I can.
Yeah, sometimes
How,
you have to.
how motivating is that? People say
Yeah,
that all the time. Well, I have to babysit. You're not babysitting an adult who is
right.
producing for you, whether they're producing at the level you want them to or producing as an adult, right? I'm going to tell you, if you keep telling them that that you're babysitting them and holding their hand, they're going to produce less, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely
Condescending. Yeah.
super condescending, but people think it's just a way to say it. Find out another way to say it, right? And that idea of autonomy,
Hmm.
I I I'm I like I don't like people standing over my shoulder. I do not like micromanagers, but I do like those clear instructions, right? Where you said, I don't need all that. I want that. I tell people all the time, yeah, I got a PhD, but if you want me to do something the way you want it done, talk to me as if I'm a second grader, spell it out. I'm sorry if that makes you think less of me, but guess what? When I turn in that assignment, it's going to be exactly the way you want it. So you see how we have totally different things. One of the things that I've been working on with clients and coaching is folks a lot of folks in assessments are scoring really high on that autonomy, right? And allowing their staff to be autonomous, enable others to act, right? Allowing them to do their job, right? And so clearing the way for them to do it, then also letting them do it with their hands off. But also one of the things that they get as well is where they are so hands off that they're not communicating with their staff, right? So, hey, I let you do your job, right? And if that mindset is, I'm gonna let you do your job and leave you alone because you should know how to do this. And then a person comes and says, hey, I have a question. And you say, you don't know how to do this?
Right.
Now you have a hands off policy and they have a hands off you policy because they don't want to be scolded and talk down to when they're asking a question about how to get things done so that you will see them as a valuable employee, right? So that's a slippery slope if we're not careful,
Right.
right? And a lot of it, hey, my first management job, I was given a 3-ring binder, 3-inch 3-ring binder with that said operating instructions, and it was put on my desk on my first day, and the admin said, "This is your training. Good luck." And so I had to figure it
Mhm.
out, how to get it done. And a lot of people my age, right? That's where they get a lot of that. And I hear that all the time, especially, now that, us Gen Xers are are in leadership now. And, this is our world now, I'm just playing. But I hear people all the
Bird.
time. Yeah, I didn't get that when I was coming up. No, neither did I. I
Mhm.
wish I did though. I wish I did,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
then it wouldn't have been such a learning curve and I wouldn't have screwed up so much. I could have got up to speed a lot quicker just by spending a little bit more time asking people, what is it that you need? What is it that motivates you? How do you like to be appreciated? If
Mhm.
you don't want to stand up at all staff, well, don't you like to be appreciated? Yeah, just because I don't like standing up at all staff, that's embarrassing. Take me in your office and tell me what I did well. That might light me up a little better. Send me an
Right.
email, or copy me on an email that, a customer sent to you or something like, yeah, that works for me, right? Those things like that tell me that what I did for you saved you so much time, or that, hey, look, you're always, so low maintenance. And, whenever I produce for you online, I never have to worry about you. That stuff makes me feel like it's justifying what I'm doing because that's what I'm trying to do. How do people know that? They ask the question. If you never ask the question, the answer is always no. If you never ask the question, how are you supposed to ever figure that out? Right? It's
Yeah.
just that conversation. And how do we have that conversation? It's just like, well, my door's always open. I tell my staff all the time the door's always open. How many people walk through that door? I ask them. So you say you have an open door policy. How many people actually take you up on that? And it's
Mhm.
usually not as many as I thought. Why? That's an offer. Hey, Tiff, whenever you need anything, my door is always open. Hit me up. Right. Well, you're not coming through with something. Well, I didn't know how. Well, I told you, to come talk to me if you had a problem. Well, that's an offer. How many people are going to come in? I mean, Tiff, if you had a problem or a question, knowing you might say, hey, I have a question. But how many people say, you know what? I should know how to figure this out. I'm not gonna bug Carl unless I absolutely need it. And then what happens? 2 months in, oh, Carl, I really have a question. The last couple months I've just been struggling and trying to figure this out. Why didn't you come talk to me after, 2 months ago? Oh, I didn't want to bug you. You seem so busy. So that offer isn't always followed up on by folks. And it's not always because they're not working. Sometimes they just don't want to bug you. So what do you do? Hey, what are you working on this week? How are you feeling about that? What can I do to support you? Right. Or your little backlog on your case management. Okay, cool. So what are some things that are backing you up? Well, AP's having a problem or this person's not giving me stuff. Okay, so maybe I need to talk to their supervisor. Maybe I can do that for you. Right. If you never ask the question, if you just offer things, how many people will receive the offer? But if you ask the specific questions, how many people will really benefit from you being an active and motivated leader?
I think something that you said right there, that last little line, you have to be an active and motivated leader. I can just only speak from my own experience. I am more motivated when I have a leader who actually cares. Um, I can tell you like 1,000%, a lot of my motivation is connected to the person who I report to. And if they're passionate and they are caring about the work and they are, open and come talk to me if you have an issue, I'll support you. 1,000%, I'm there with them, right? Even if it's hard, even if it's treacherous, even if, we're working extra hours or pulling extra shifts. If they're like, we got this, let's do it, I'm there with them. If I have a leader who's like, or super punitive, I cannot stand a super punitive leader. I cannot stand, I want to just say that for my friends who didn't hear it in the back. I cannot stand a super punitive leader that the only time that they talk to you or acknowledge your existence is when you make a mistake. And then they act like if that mistake is the end of the world. Like they can't acknowledge the 1,000 times that you got it right. That one time that you made that mistake and they call you out on it and they don't ever share anything else with you, you're not going to get anything out of it. Nothing good. Nothing good is going to come out of this relationship. So I think when you have a leader who is motivated and open and active in the process, it's contagious. And again, the opposite is also true. There can be hands-off direction. I have no issue for the most part with hands-off leaders. That's again probably the autonomy in me, where I don't want to dictate every moment of your day, but I do also believe autonomy is not like no direction at all. It is more when I'm thinking about it of here's what the goal is, here's what we want, here's the parameters. And then I also appreciate even with the autonomy, maybe like check-ins along the way, agreed upon check-ins. So if this is a 2-month long project, let's meet once a week and see where you're at, make sure we're still headed in the same direction. Ooh, I like this part of what you did, not so much a fan here. What can you do differently here? That I'm all for. But again, if you're like, I wanted to say this and I wanted to say that, like write it yourself. You obviously know what you want. I'm not going to give it to you. I'm going to put my own spin on it. That's the one that I kind of shy away from. But what I find fascinating, and again, I'm only speaking from my own experience, is that too often there's like this us versus them mentality between leadership and the people doing the work, where they want the people to be motivated, but they're not modeling any of that behavior. It is all about like the minutia of the work and the small fine details, but nothing about the purpose, nothing about the vision. You know, I was working with a group of people the other day from a county far, far away, and these are all like emerging leaders. And I said, what's your county's vision? What's your county's like values? What's the mission? Crickets. Nobody knew. And I'm like, how are we making decisions about where we're headed if we don't even know what the goal is? And how does that impact the people that are looking to you for direction? When I'm like, why are we even here? Oh, because we've got this state report due at the end of the year. And we want to make sure we're in 100% compliance and don't lose our FJ funding. You know, like I'm not super excited about that. You know, so I think like how you lead is important and how motivated you are as a leader. But because if you show up for work every day and you're like, let's just get through the day, like, let's see if we could all get through the day without crying today. Like, if you're stressed out and you're overwhelmed or you're checked out, me too. Me too. So I love the idea of like, let's have an open door policy. Let's be conscientious about how we ask people for support, but also making it safe for them to actually do so. Because I've had bosses that are like, I have an open door policy. Come ask me for anything. And then you go like, hey, do you have a minute? And they bite your head off. Like, you know what? I'm good. I'm good. I'll figure it out. But I've had other ones where I felt very connected, where I could go, my old boss, Mila, gotta love her. She I think she probably regretted every day I walked into her office. But I used to work from 7:30 to 5:30. That was like our work schedule. We were off every other Friday. It was like the best. And I'm an idea person. I'm not always an executor of ideas, but I always come up with brilliant ideas. And so she was my supervisor and she had that open door policy. And if I had a Thai tea at lunch, if I drank a Thai tea at lunch by 5 o'clock, I was like this. And so I would go into her office between that 5 and 5:30, that like low opportunity time of the day where no real work is going to get done, you know, but you're just kind of watching the clock, waiting for time to be over so you could leave. I used to go to her office and say, Mila, I got a great idea. We could do this, and we could do that. We could do this. And I just like word vomit, like all of my brilliant Thai tea induced hallucination ideas to her. And she'd write some stuff down like, oh, that's a good idea. Oh, I could take that to my man. Oh, yeah, well, let me see about that. Right. And then she'd say, Tiff, did you have Thai tea for lunch today? And I'd say, yes, I did. She's like, I can tell, but great stuff. Let me see what we can do. If she ever took it any further, I have no idea. It doesn't matter. But I was very motivated to share information with her because I felt heard She never was like, you're crazy, that's a terrible idea. She just would write down the stuff and say, let's look into that and see. Or, oh, didn't think about that. Great, great thing. It was just I felt very motivated to move beyond just my assignment because I felt connected. I felt heard with her. She lacked in other areas, but she was really great in that space, let me tell you. But I really appreciate that. And I was very motivated to think beyond my job description because I had an avenue for that, even if it was just when I was all hopped up on sugar and Thai tea and whatever else, whatever other things that they put in that make me zoom. If you ever
Yeah.
want me to like repaint your house or whatever, give me a Thai tea. I will have it done in an hour. I'm jamming.
Folks, Tiff has a Starbucks list on Instagram. You can sign up and send her Thai teas and mochi. Was it mochi? Mochi and
Matcha, matcha.
matcha shots. Yes, yes. Mochi something totally
Yes.
different. But yeah,
Yeah, mochi
yeah.
is totally. I'm not a fan of mochi, but I love matcha. Matcha
I
green
like
tea. Love it.
I like boba. Yes. So
I don't like
um
boba. I don't like boba. Can I be gross for a second? Boba is like slimy little boogers to me. Like it is so like texture wise, so unappealing to me. For all of you who love boba, sorry that you like slimy boogers, but I am not
but
textural nightmare for me.
yeah,
Nightmare.
if I have slimy little boogers in my Thai tea, then I'm in heaven. So, it's all
There
good.
you go. To each their own. I don't judge you. I don't judge you. Just not for me.
But speaking on that idea of having somebody who's there to hear you and support you,
Yeah.
I had a great manager who did that too, right? I'd come in with harebrained schemes all the time and say, Virginia, if we do this, and she'd go, well, let me ask. What's the worst thing they could say is no, right? But
Yeah.
the literature backs that up. The research, if you have one person who you can confide in and you can vent to or you can communicate with at your job and they provide you non-judgmental support and empathetic support, you stay longer at the job and you perform more, you perform better, right? And then you have the opposite, right? One of the main reasons why people leave, 75% of reasons why people leave a job is their direct supervisor, right? Or 75% of people polled an exit survey said their direct supervisor is one of the main reasons why they left the job. So you see how these things are so important in terms of us, you know, just even getting up and being motivated to get our work done. If we have somebody that we're working for that supports us, we'll run through a brick wall a lot quicker for them than, can you stay late? Can you cover somebody's lunch? Right. And, you know, sure, if it's somebody I care about, absolutely. If I'm a good teammate, I want to do that as opposed to, well, who's going to do that for me? My supervisor is not going to support me with that. Right. And
Right.
I mean, I hear it all the time working with folks. My supervisor's not supportive. Other people say things to me, and my supervisor just sits there and lets them do it. So I don't, I'm trying to find somewhere else to go. I hear you.
Yeah.
Right. So, what is it that we need to do to, help people identify the way that they motivate and having those conversations about like you mentioned, well, this will keep us out of this will keep us in compliance or this will keep us out of regulatory jail or anything else like that. Those are working from deficits, right? Those are motivators that keep us from getting into trouble. What are things that will be exciting so that people will feel like if we do this, we will be able to accomplish better things, right? If we learn this new reporting system, it will conceivably cut down our workload by 30%.
Right.
I can buy into that, right? If we, do this particular thing, it's going to save us this time, or it's going to save the people that we work with this much time, or this will increase our profits, right? When people have an idea of what it is that is helpful, that is much more motivating, right? So how can we think about what can we do to improve those things and to have those conversations, have those check-ins like you talked about, the value of check-ins, what I've been telling a lot of clients is when you have a regular scheduled check-in, which a lot of people don't. They just have check-ins. And, I just had somebody this morning. Well, so, how often do you have check-ins? Oh, whenever something comes up, we have to have a check-in. Or if something goes wrong, I said, okay, so every time you have a check-in, your employee thinks it's because of something negative. How excited are they going to be to hear you? Right? How excited are they going to be to see you? Right? So when you have those standing meetings, those check-in status updates, you have a place for people to accumulate what it is that we want to talk about, right? Even if you have people who take advantage of those open door meetings, right? Or open door policy, a lot of times, if it's something that didn't necessarily need to be discussed, think about how much time you're wasting and they're wasting popping in to your office, right? Hey, Carl, you got a minute? And not at 5 or 5:30, 10:30 in the morning when we're trying to get, this other stuff done. Hey, Carl, I got a question about something that's due next week. Well, okay. So we answer the question as opposed to something's due next week. I'm going to see Carl on Friday. Let me save that for him, right? I can ask him that question so that now I can focus on what I need to get done and what Carl needs to get done. Every time someone pops into your office or just even pops their head in and says, "Hey, Tiff, how was your weekend? Did you bring your shoes? We're going to walk around the building. All right, I'll see you at 10:30." It takes us anywhere from 5 to 24 minutes to get back to the same level of focus we were at before your best friend popped in and said hi, right? And so just think about having that standing time to have those conversations. Even if it's a half an hour, Harvard Business Review says a half an hour a week, or 2 hour or an hour once every 2 weeks is best practice, right? If you can do that, that's fantastic, right? But just to be able to have that time there allows people to plan for it to be meaningful and it can keep them from feeling like they're bugging you or for asking questions. They're not bugging you when you have a standing meeting. So they will save those questions. And now, if you're not condescending and you're supportive and you're empathetic, that's what they're going to feel a lot more comfortable. They're going to come up with a lot more real world um, solutions, right? And ideas that they're not going to be shut down for. I mean, if that's so regular check-ins, even if people say, "Oh, who has the time for it?" It saves you time, right? And
You
so,
never find time. You got to make time.
got to make
You
the
got to
time.
make time.
Yeah.
So I know that I get the question a lot from leaders about like, well, how do we motivate people? Um, and again, there's so many different ways. There's no one size fits all. This is such a loaded question. Um, but if I can go down a quick rabbit hole real fast of these wild notes, I get like I'm motivated by little temporary moments of brilliance that I write in my phone and never look at again. I think we talked about this last time. I write down ideas, never look at them again. So as we were talking about this, I remembered that years ago, a couple years ago, I had this like moment of clarity around Maslow's hierarchy of needs and creating a motivated work environment. So I want to go like super high level, like macro level. How do we create an environment where people are motivated to do the work? These individual transactions are so important. This is part of how we build that. These conversations we have, this creating boundaries around time, like all of this, understanding what people need individually. But I want to think like big picture. Um, so I want to start. So again, for those of you who don't know, I'm not making the Illuminati sign. Don't get all I do with all this P Diddy stuff. I don't want to be giving people the wrong idea. But
There's no baby
pyramids.
oil involved, guys. No baby oil.
There's no. Well, I'm not even shiny. Like we're talking about a pyramid. It's funny. I've been thinking a lot about these pyramids because if you think about what we've talked about on this podcast, we've had the drama triangle, we've had Lencioni's five dysfunctions of a team, which is a pyramid shape, and now Maslow's is also a pyramid.
As you're
But at
seeing
the
on the
very
screen right
bottom,
now. As you're
yeah.
seeing on the screen now.
So it's a pyramid, and at the bottom of the pyramid are those physiological needs. This is what Carl was talking about. Like, do you have enough to eat? Do you have, access to air and water? Like the things that your body needs to survive. And so, from a workplace standpoint, when we're thinking about like what are those physiological needs, those basic needs, if these needs aren't met, nothing else is going to happen. Livable and competitive wages. Okay. Livable and competitive wages. Because if I'm not getting paid enough to maintain my family or myself, I'm not thinking about making your company a better place. I'm not thinking about your profit margins. I'm not thinking about my contributions. I'm still in survival mode. So living in competitive wages, having things like insurance and benefits. So retirement plans, good health insurance, access to health insurance, also having a comfortable work schedule and flexibility. I think all of this comes back to physiological, those bottom layer physiological needs. Because if I have young kids and there's no flexibility with like my start time where I start at 8 and they start school at 8 and I can't, if there's no flexibility in that, then I'm again really going to be in survival mode all of the time. So for me, that's like the basis. If you focus on nothing else in your organization, livable and competitive wages, insurance and benefits, and comfortable work schedules and flexibility. Because if you think about what people are when they go on strike, when you think about when people, which is the opposite of I'm motivated to not work, I'm motivated to make a scene and not work, it's almost always connected to those things. Working conditions, wages, benefits. Because I can't focus on anything else if I can't survive on what I'm getting paid for. If the compensation to my time spent at work isn't equal, I'm not going to be able to think about anything else. So that's that first rung. The next one is safety and stability. Here is where it's really important to create a non-toxic work environment. So non-toxic meaning people feel safe to come to work. They feel like they can come to work and do their job without dealing with a bunch of drama. Clear and fair job expectations. Clear and fair meaning I know what my job entails. There's no surprises. And it's fair. You don't have one person doing all the work and somebody else sitting with their feet up on the desk while they get paid the same. Respectful feedback. So I know that if I do a good job, I'm going to hear from that. If I don't hear, or if I do a good job, I'll hear about it. If I don't do a good job, it'll be shared with me respectfully. And organizational stability here, meaning that the company itself or wherever you work is not like all over the place. If I'm worried about layoffs all the time, like you mentioned earlier, Carl mentioned it earlier, if I'm worried like every quarter that we're going to shut down or every quarter there's going to be a merger and I might lose my job, I'm not going to be thinking about my 5-year plan because I'm just wondering how long until I'm unemployed. So those connect for me to safety, that again, I can know that I can come to work. It's going to be predictable. I know what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to do it. And I know that my company is safe. The third one is belonging. So again, if you've got good livable wages and there's safety, then people will start to look at again, do I belong here? This is where there has to be clear culture and direction. Clear culture and direction, meaning I know what my company stands for, I know what we're here for, and I know how I fit into that big picture. Also, diversity, equity, and inclusion is an integral part and part of the fabric of that tapestry and of the work environment, where people are allowed to be their whole selves and they don't have to adapt to fit in. They can be their authentic self and accepted for their gifts and accepted for their shortcomings. And you find ways to find balance in that. Here, authenticity and trust are both encouraged and reinforced. And so this means that people can come to work and be themselves without fear of retribution, without having to hide the parts of themselves. This is not just attached to like things like race and ethnicity or sexual orientation, but I can come to work and tell you about how I did watch The Walking Dead till the very end, and I'm not ostracized by those who stopped at season 6. I can come and have conversations about who I am and again, like for me, I told you earlier, I'm all over the place. Like I can be all over the place and people understand that about me and they don't make me change as long as it's not impacting their work, right? Let me work the way I work. So that has to do with belonging. If people feel like they don't belong, if they're othered, if they're like put on the outskirts, or if they're kind of relegated to the fringes of the workplace, then they're not going to be able to give their best work. And if I feel like I have to be somebody else to be respected, or I have to be somebody else to fit in, then I'm not going to give my best self. Period. With a T on the end of that one. All right. So that is belonging. I have esteem. Esteem here, I have individuals and teams are recognized for their unique qualities and contributions. And here, positive contributions are both acknowledged and celebrated. And so this is going to be on the short term and the long term. Sometimes teams like step in and take on work that doesn't belong to them, especially in this era of being short-staffed. There are people who really come through and carry the teams for months and years at a time. That has to be acknowledged and recognized. And not just on an individual level, because I think that creates a bit of competitiveness. If we're just like, Carl, you did great and so did great, but like looking at whole departments and teams and acknowledging their collective contributions, I think is important in the esteem. So being able to be recognized for the work that you do. And the very, very, very last one, which is self-actualization. This only happens when all of the other needs are met, is that people are encouraged to grow in their current position. They stretch assignments. It's such a hard word for me to say, but stretch assignments where people are able to do work outside of their scope of duty is both welcomed and encouraged. And this includes where people can self-identify where they maybe want to develop a skill set. So, for example, if I'm an instructor in a particular field, and I say, you know, I'd kind of like to learn more about this other topic. I'm really interested in taking this other topic on. I don't have necessarily the experience there, but I'd like to learn more about it. That's welcome for people to grow and develop. Stagnancy is discouraged. So people who choose to stay the same forever and ever is discouraged. That kind of gets away from I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm not moving into the new system, right? We encourage people to grow. And as an organization, we're looking for new ways to contribute to society and make the world a better place. I know Carl brought it up earlier, talking about the training manual and people saying things like, oh, well, I never had that. I never had training and I made it. Well, you know, at what point do we break the cycle of trauma in the workplace? Where do we break the cycle of leadership in the workplace, or get rid of things that don't work? Remember when we used to paint our houses with lead paint and have asbestos? You know, we found out that stuff doesn't work, or it's not good for you, so we don't use it anymore. Well, some of you might, but most people don't use it anymore. And so I'm saying, like, just because we did doesn't mean we should. Just because you survived it doesn't mean that we have to expose other people to it. How do we change it to find what works best and stay flexible with the times, because times are a changing. And we have to be willing to grow with that. Otherwise, if we stick to the processes of the past, or this is how it's always been done, people will not be motivated, especially when they can see through the smoke and mirrors and they know it doesn't make sense anymore. I'm not going to do it just because you told me, oh, you were traumatized. Cool, I should do that too. Thank you for passing the trauma on, instead of saying, hey, maybe there's a better way, a more effective, efficient way. So that's that was my Tiffany epiphany, for lack of a better word, about the Maslow and how it relates to like workplace. And again, if you don't start at the bottom and create that foundation, you're never going to get to that space where people are thinking about, I'd really love to find a better way for this organization to run. I've thought of this brilliant idea. I'd like to share it with the CEO. I don't even need credit for it. You're never going to get to that point if you're not meeting people and creating these layers up to the top. Just the same as you wouldn't ask somebody who doesn't have a place to live and doesn't know where their next meal is coming from to write the next opera, like write the next famous opera. You're never going to get there if they don't have those needs met. And so one layer at a time, like lasagna. Like lasagna. Now I'm hungry.
I'm thinking about what you just went through with Maslow, and I love it. Tiffany's epiphany, love it. And so just thinking about where those are, you've mentioned in another episode, those hygiene factors and the motivators, right? And that's Hertzberg's two-factor theory, and it's definitely,
Mhm.
such an important piece. And you completely see it, how Maslow and Hertzberg were, unintended brothers in motivation, right? So
Mhm.
just thinking about that idea of um, those existential needs, right? Basic human survival needs and safety, right? So being able to have competitive wages, right? To have a work schedule that allows you to raise your kids and live a life, right? And have clear job expectations, right? Job security. Those are things that people look for when they're coming for a job. And Hertzberg says when we have those are hygiene factors, right? Good wages, benefits. He says hygiene factors will keep us at a job, but they won't make us be motivated to do more, right? But then thinking about the idea of belonging, when you belong somewhere, when you feel like you are comfortable there to be yourself, to know that there are people like that look like you and that live their life, in a similar fashion, and that it's welcome and okay where you are, helps you to feel comfortable enough to be able to think about, I'm going to be here for a while. So what am I going to do? And to be recognized, which allows us to think about, where do I want to go, right? How do I want to develop my career here? What training would I like? What education would I like? What I want to know more about? Those are things that we can think about in terms of those intellectual development, after we've taken care of some of those safety needs, right? And so Hertzberg calls those motivators, right? And so those motivators, right? Feeling like you belong, having a plan, having somebody connect with you on a plan and communicating, right? Celebrating achievement and success, right? Those things are so motivating. There's a stat that I use a lot. There was a survey done, and 61% of people in the survey, Gallup survey, said that they need that positive interaction with their supervisor to feel like they are accomplishing work. So to stay motivated, right? And another organization said that in their survey, 98% of people, when they received unsolicited appreciation and motivation, said that they work better. Right. So I always put those two together because if you do the math, 61% say they need it, 98% say when I get it, I do better. So that's 37% of folks who are not going to ask you for it.
Mhm.
37% of folks who are just going to go through the motions and not ask you, and may think in their minds, well, I wish they knew what they thought of me, but I need this job. So if it's almost 100% of folks that need that, I mean, just say everybody works better when they are recognized in the way that they want to be recognized for what they want to be recognized for, right? So thinking about that, it's not just these people I need to babysit or hold their hands. No, everybody, if we do this, you're going to cover everyone, especially if you're interested in who the hell your people are, right? Even the toughest, non-emotional person can get lit up about something, can get passionate
Right.
about something. And when you recognize them for the effort that they put into that, it helps them to feel like I'm in the right place, right? So if we're thinking about just basic motivation, right? It's not about, you know, $5 Starbucks gift cards, although I won't, turn down a gift card, right? But, you know, what is it that I like to be motivated for? and to be recognized for, and see if that doesn't create a bit of an uptick in performance. All right. So just
Yeah.
recognizing most people respond when you give them that positive feedback. You just got to know what it is and how to do it.
We've been talking about motivation for quite some time, and I don't know if y'all noticed, we have not said throw a pizza party or an ice cream social, not one time. Not a
Or a
one
potluck.
time.
Or a potluck.
Or a potluck.
You know,
Yeah,
I love me
yeah,
some
we're
potlucks.
right. Those things are not super motivating. I mean, they're fun to do from time to time if there's something to celebrate or whatever it is. But if you're like, why are people not working? Don't they know we spent $200 on Costco pizza last month? Like, get it, stop it.
I have a funny story. I was coaching somebody like a year ago, and they mentioned, it's so hard. People are working hard, they're working overtime, and they're being frustrated by it. And I don't know what to do. I mean, I bring in donuts every Saturday, and it's like they still are frustrated. And I'm like, well, but so I don't understand. It's the donuts. I mean, I bring in the donuts. Don't they appreciate? Yeah, but what if you're like me and maybe you can only have one when there's 20, right? But
Right.
but not only that, great, I get donuts. Okay, but I got to be here for 8 hours. So
I
awesome,
miss my kid's
right?
soccer game. I'm missing my kid's soccer game. And
No, but I'm giving you donuts. Your soccer game is great, but they don't have donuts there, do they?
right.
They might have
Yeah.
orange slices too. But anyways, so just like you said, thinking about it, I mean, those material things, those little things, they can make a difference when when they're every now and then or when they are unsolicited. But if you think that they are the basis of people feeling appreciated on a regular basis, it's something that's only temporary. It's transitory and it's not lasting.
And it can backfire. I have a quick story too. The same, my Thai tea boss, the one that knew when I was all hopped up on the Thai tea, um, she was a really good cook and a really good baker. And so when we would have like our unit meetings, she'd always bring us like snacks and treats. She'd make us like little cakes and stuff like that. She was really great. So we always knew like our unit meetings, we looked forward to them because we would always have something yummy. And one of her best things that she made was this carrot cake with a buttermilk glaze on it. Let me tell you, that cake was phenomenal. And we found out that she only made that cake when she had to deliver bad news at the meetings. That was like her best thing. So she was like, okay, if I got to tell these folks bad news, let me get them this really good cake. And while they're all like, this is the best, because we love that cake, she would deliver whatever the bad news was. And so after a while, as soon as we would see that cake, we knew that cake tasted like deception after a while. So we knew, oh crap, she's bringing the carrot cake. All right, what? Who's getting moved to a new unit? Who's getting fired? Something bad is
Oh,
about to happen because that bad news cake is here. So it can backfire after a while. Just people can only eat their feelings for so long. But if you're not if you're not taking care of the things that are making people feel demotivated, if you're not managing the environment that causes people to get disengaged, if you're not creating those relationships of trust and connection, then there's no pizza party or ice cream social or delicious cake that you can bring that's going to make people want to stay. And like keep that in mind. I mean, just heed that advice because we do lose good people. And good people leave those jobs, just like Carl was saying earlier, not because of the work, but oftentimes because of the leaders that again are not meeting those needs. And it becomes like the prizes and punishment. I really love the work and I get a lot of motivation from doing the work, but the punishment is I got to do it with these people all day long. Sometimes that's the motivating factor. And I've known lots of people, myself included, who have left really good paying jobs with stability for the idea that I'm going to lose a lot, but at least I don't have to work with these yahoos anymore. So there's a benefit, you know? So keep that in mind. If your people aren't motivated, it's not them, it's probably you. And look a little bit deeper on what you need to do differently. And, you know, motivation, by the way, is also very individual. It's part of your emotional intelligence. You have to be able to motivate yourself. And there comes a space where maybe you're not able to anymore. Like you've exhausted all of your compassion or connection with an activity, a job, a person, a relationship, whatever that looks like for you. And there comes a time where maybe you can let it go because it doesn't serve you anymore. Like let it go if it doesn't bring you joy. And Cy Wakeman, you know, I'm a huge fan of hers. She has a phrase, stay in joy or leave in peace. There comes time when your motivation kind of waxes and wanes that you might get into one of those valleys of disappointment where you're not motivated so much anymore. And that's a good space to check in with yourself and find out, like, is this something I want to continue? Can I get out of this valley? It might be an uphill battle for a little bit. Can I get recommitted to this work and find a way to stay in joy? That might mean, again, rethinking what I think about the work. It might mean being more open about what my needs are. That means I'm not going to wait for my boss to ask me what I need. I might go and say, you know what, Carl, in this, you're my boss in this example, Carl, congratulations. The worst job in the world, be my supervisor. But I will go, you know what, Carl, I'm just not really feeling connected. I feel like the only time you ever talk to me is when I've done something wrong. And so in order for me to feel like valued here, what I really need to hear from you every once in a while is when I get it right. So if you could tell me a few of the things that I've done right over the past couple of months, I'd really appreciate that. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. So I might have to be vulnerable and share that with him. Will he meet me there? Maybe, maybe not, but I have to do that work. And if I share that with him, hey, I need a bit of encouragement. And he's like, I'm not here to babysit you. I'm here to pay you money to do a job. That may give me the motivation to leave in peace and go do something else or somewhere else. And that's not an easy thing to do, but it's an option. It's always an option. And so that's something to think about. I can't, as much as it's a leader's job to create an environment of motivation, it's really up to us individually. Our motivation level is not anybody else's responsibility. It's 100% up to us. Yep. And so, like, take ownership of that as well, and not just be like, I'm miserable because of my boss. That might be a factor, but you choose to keep coming back. And so maybe you have to choose something else or find a different way to change it. So that's food for thought.
And so with that in mind, we'll wrap up this episode with 3 questions. Right. What motivates you? Of all the things we talked about today, what gets you going? What stimulates you about what you do and who you do it for? The second, what do you like to be appreciated for? The effort that you put into or the work that you do. What is it that you like someone to call you out for in a positive way? And the third, how would you like it to be shown? Right? Do you like the pizza party? Do you want the gift card? Do you want the email? Do you want the public kudos? Or just want the person to take you in the office and tell you how much of a rock star you are? Yes, Tiff, a rock star. And if you really want to motivate me, you will bring me kettle corn. So, all
well,
right.
I will say flattery for me, you don't have to bring me kettle corn, but flattery gets you everywhere.
There you go.
Just don't call me a rock star because that will it'll get you somewhere, but nowhere that you want to be.
And don't call me late for dinner. So, all right. All right. Well, hopefully you are more motivated and ready to go at the end of this. And we loved having this conversation. And until next time, I'm Carl.
I'm Tiff, and I might just go exercise right now. That's a lie.
Keep it motivated and real.
Yes.
After I have my kettle corn, I'll go exercise.
Maybe I need a Tai Chi.